This is chapter 5, completing business messages, which is the final step of the writing process. So you have done the plan 1 and the stage 1 planning and the stage 2 writing. So now is the stage 3, which is completing. So under these steps, there are 4 activities that you need to do, which is revising the message, producing the message, proofreading, and distributing the message. So the time allotment is 25% for this step. So communication is important. The number 1 rule, bear in mind, is to keep your communication message simple. Simplicity. Simple is beautiful. Yeah. So the secret to simplicity is careful revision. So that is why we need to review, we need to revise your message. Whatever message or whatever reports that you have done, the first draft, you need to review the draft or the message. Yeah. So you need to review the message, transforming a rambling, unfocused message, because the first draft of it will be not done in a proper way. There might be some mistakes, grammatical mistakes, the ideas not in align with the subject and so on. And it is everywhere. The ideas are here and there. It's not arranged sequentially and according to the emphasis. So transforming a rambling, unfocused message into a lively, direct one that gets attention and spurs action. So this is the learning outcome. So in this chapter, we will cover the values of careful revision and the tasks involved. Secondly, the techniques to improve readability of your message. The third outcome is to improve the clarity of writing and making it concise. The fourth one is on the principles of effective design of your message, the visual design or visual content, your layout of your message, and the role of design elements, the importance of proofreading, and issues to consider when distributing your message. There are a few issues to consider here. So next, this is the learning outcome 1. Revising your message, evaluating your first draft. So it is important to evaluate your first draft. So why? Why is it important? Anyone can answer? And why does it matter? Why do you need to revise? What is the purpose of revising your message? Anyone who can type in? Yes, very good. So the message is clear. So you want to convey a message and make sure that message is effective and it is able to convey the correct message to the listener, to the specific person. Sometimes when we construct a sentence, we may not realize that the sentence is quite not correct. It's blur. People may not understand. So it is better to check and to revise, to do some revisions, to review your message, evaluating your first draft. Okay. So that's the reason, that's the purpose. So revising your message involves these 3 steps or elements. The first one is the content. So what about the content? What is it? So the content must be very clear. What actually you want to convey. So is the content clear? You need to put yourself in the other person's shoes, the reader or the listener. So if you are the reader, would you be able to understand the content of the message? Is it clear? Is it relevant? And is it complete? So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself when you revise, when you do your revision, or when you evaluate your first draft. And also bear in mind, after you have done your first, okay, you need to mute your mic. I can hear your voices there. Hanizal, is it? Okay. All right. So when you have done your report, it's better to put it aside first. Don't straight away evaluate your report. Put it aside for maybe one day. After that, you go through and evaluate, review your draft. And sometimes after you have completed your report, straight away you want to review. But still, you may not be able to see the mistake, right? So it's better to put it aside probably for one day. Give it a rest first. The next day, you have a fresh mind ready. So you check, you go through your report. All right. So make sure on the content. The next one is organization. How do you organize your report? Is the ideas, your ideas, all in sequence? And have you given the correct space, emphasis on important matters? When you have important matters, you need to emphasize that first. Okay, make it a priority. Emphasize the important things first. And make sure that it will be emphasized in your content, meaning to say the coverage will be longer than the other less important content. And the order, it should be prioritized according to the importance. The next one is repetition. Make sure you don't repeat your sentences or the words. And grouping. I will show you some examples on this later. And finally, the tone of your message. Is it too formal or is it too casual? Is it correct? Is the tone correct for your audience? Let's say if your audience are professional people, so it should be a formal tone, isn't it? But if your audience, let's say you are in a performing something, so your tone should be casual, right? Okay, so this is things that you need to consider. Who is your audience? So if it is a serious matter, so it should be formal. Okay, so these are the few things that you need to consider in evaluating your first draft. Okay. Okay, in your career, in one point of time, you will be asked to evaluate your colleagues' message or reports. So how would you evaluate the work of your colleagues? So these are some questions to help you to evaluate. And bear in mind that you are only to evaluate the work and not to impose your writing style, because each one will have their own writing style. So let's say I have my own writing style and you may have your own. So you cannot impose your writing style to the other person when you evaluate your work. The most important thing is that when you evaluate, you must see what is the purpose of the message, who is the audience, is it well organized, does it convey the you attitude, and so forth. All right. Okay, we move on. So this is the next subsection, which is on the improving the readability. So what are the techniques? So when you say readability, it means we want to make sure that our content is easily understood by the audience. So these are the techniques that we can use or we can apply. For example, the sentence length, the length of your sentence in your content. So it could be a short sentence up to 15 words, medium sentence between 15, this is between 15 to 25, and long sentence which is more than 25 words. So in your content, in your message, it is good to use all these three sentences, a mixture of these three sentences. So short sentences is good, especially for a person who is not a native speaker of that language. So for example, if you write in English, so those non-native speaker will understand the message if they are in a short sentences, right? For medium sentences, normally it's used to compare several ideas in the same grammatical structure. And for the long sentences, normally it's used for either to summarize something. You may have a lot of ideas and you need to summarize. So when you have these long sentences, you will use listings and bullets to summarize. Okay, so that's on the varying sentence length and keeping paragraphs short. So I have mentioned also that when you write your assignment or your reports, you need to have paragraphs. All right. So with paragraphs, the reader is able to read your content easily. So this is one of the techniques to ensure that your readers may understand what you are trying to convey there. So one paragraph is average having 100 words. That's the average, all right? So 100 words per paragraph, and at the same time, I have mentioned the headings and subheadings as well. So each paragraph, you must have the headings or subheadings of the main section if you have subheadings, right? And the list and bullets also help to simplify complex points. So let's say if you have a long sentence, so you can simplify that by having by listing them down in bullet form. So you can highlight the main ideas and sequence the ideas according to their importance. Okay, so that's on the readability. Clarity and conciseness. So what is clarity? So just now we mentioned about sentences. So if you have an extra long sentences, so you need to break it up to short sentences for ease of understanding, and rewrite hedging sentences. Hedging means evading something. Sometimes when we write, we make a judgment, okay, but we may not be right on the facts. So it's better to use can or may when you write your sentences. But do not overdo or do not make a lot of, do not overuse these words can and may, because it will also reflect that you are not sure of what you're saying. So just on the average side. Impose parallel structure. So if you want to compare two ideas, for example, but the same, but they are related, so you can come up with these parallel sentences and so on. So this is for clarity and conciseness. Delete unnecessary words. There are words like, okay, we go to the examples in the next slide. So just bear in mind unnecessary words, long words and phrases, redundant word combination, and recast it is JR status. So it is JR status, you need to reword this. So let's see the examples. On the unnecessary words, for example, for the sum of. So just delete the sum of, use for only. Some people, they like to use these words. They are long-winded, so they prefer to use long sentences, but it can be just one word for it. In the event that, so you can just use, instead of these 4 words, just replace with it. Prior to the start of, it just change to before. So you see, that is how you revise for conciseness. Use the appropriate words instead of unnecessary words and phrases. And another example on the long words and phrases. During the preceding year, the company accelerated productive operations. So this is quite long. When you can shorten it just like this. Last year, preceding year is last year. So just last year, the company speed up operations. So you see the difference. On the redundancies, repeating meanings, absolutely complete. So absolutely is not necessary, because word complete already is sufficient enough to describe whatever you want to describe there. Basic fundamentals. Basic is the same as fundamentals, so just use fundamentals. It follows after. It is understood. Just put follow. So you see the difference? So that's on the examples. So producing your message. So you need to be careful on the design of your message. The visual content, because sometimes when I read your assignment, for example, the reports, if it is in one long one long paragraph, I cannot be able to get what you want to convey there, right? So that's on the visual part. So the most important thing here, you must have all this: consistency, detail, balance, and restraint. So what do we mean by consistency? So consistency here referring to the margin, your font size, your typeface, and then whether your paragraph is justified, aligned left or aligned right. Normally, I would prefer to have your paragraph or your content justified. And if you are using font size 12, you use size 12 all the way, except if it is a heading. Normally, if it is a heading, you may use bigger font size. Yeah, that's on the consistency. And on the detail part, okay. Detail part is referring to the for example, the columns. If it is too wide a column, just a small, the details is normally the very small things that you need to see in your draft. Okay, so just like when you have a wide column, big column, for example, when you can use a small column. So this involves the detailed part of the structure or the layout of your report. Okay, and on the balance is a document may have a formal or rigid design. So this is also like what to say, a formal or rigid design, for example, like a grid. You know, a grid where you have this, it's like a table form. So it is well balanced message, yeah. And this is also referring to the tone of your message. So you must have the right balance of the message. So if it is a formal report, so it should be using the proper formal layout of a report, right? But if it is just for a casual report, it may have a different format. Okay, so that's on the balance. And also additionally, you may have some decorative designs for informal messages, yeah. So this is designing for readability. And on the restraint, like I said, mentioned just now, go for simplicity. Okay, so don't clutter your message with too many designs. Okay, so that's on restraint. So applying the elements, so it's good to have white space, meaning to say the spacing, margins, justification, like I've mentioned, whether you want to justify the paragraph, left align or right align, but normally I would advise to you have it justified, the typeface and type style. Okay, designing for mobile devices. So sometimes when you want to produce your message, you should think that people may be using the smartphone. So your words, your message should be in a format where when they view using the smartphone, it will be viewed and will be read easily in a small screen. Okay, so this is an example, figure 5.4a, and compare to this one. So which one is better? You can read easily. This figure 5.4b, right? So you see the difference? When writing for a mobile device, you should consider the white spaces, the short sentences, etc. So proofreading your message, I think this is the last part. So you need to proofread. Make multiple passes, meaning to say you need to check many times until you are satisfied. Perceptual tricks like, for example, certain errors which is right below your nose, but still you cannot see. Right? Sometimes like that. You are already too much reading until you cannot see the mistakes already. It's right there, but you cannot see already the mistakes there. So it's good to have a third eye, meaning to say a third party, a third person to check your draft. So these are some of the tips for proofreading. So don't rush your proofreading. So as I mentioned, you can put aside, and then after that, you go through again the next day, proofread and check. So distributing a message to the audience. So 4 things that you need to consider: the cost of distributing, convenience, security and privacy, and the time constraint. Yeah. For the cost, sometimes if we are involved in multimedia, advertising, so you need to consider the cost. Yeah. Because when you have already printed so many and then at the end of it is not required, you have already wasted the paper, the ink, and so forth. And then the convenience, you should consider the audience convenience of accessing the information. So if it is convenient for them to convey the message via electronic communication, by all means, if not through the hard copy, for example, and so forth. Okay, so I think we have done more or less covered chapter 5, completing business